Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of nefarious things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. And I am joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing first, from New York, Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy? Say hi.
Hi. What's happening, boys? Happy to be back. Excited for our guest coming up later this episode. Been a while since we had a guest, so yeah, ready to get into it.
Nice, nice. And now introducing his interlocutor from Florida, the Sunshine State, the Nicaraguan Nightmare, Omar Artolo. What's up, my friend?
What's going on? Had the parents here this past weekend. They finally came down to visit. Met my parents, my in-laws. And they just parents. Yeah, no, they met my in-laws. But they went home last night, so spent a good amount of time with them over the last week, so it's good.
Nice, that was a long stay.
It was a long stay.
Last episode, yeah. They had just started their kind of vacation down here the last episode, and they're ending it off of yesterday. Yeah,
nice. I have some friends over for this weekend. They just got in tonight, so when we get done with this episode, I'm going to go have some libations.
Wow, you're a terrible host.
Yeah, the worst. I was like, bye guys, I'm going to go do a YouTube show.
It's 9:47 p.m. Are you going to see them at midnight?
No, we already fed them.
No, I said, when are you going to see them?
Oh, over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, tomorrow. That's great. And I am also, I'm on the eve of spending a week in New York. I have two events next week. I'm emceeing an award show in the cosmetics industry. And then next weekend... Yeah, a little different. It'll be my
fifth. You always do that, right?
Yeah, this will be my fifth time hosting this award show.
Yeah.
And then next weekend I have Star Boxing once again.
Sweet.
In Queens, New York. Speaking of New York and boxing, a little treat for you guys towards the end of this episode, we are having back our good friend Tommy from Boxing. He is going to be joining us once again to talk about some huge fights over in the boxing side of combat sports, talking about Tyson Fury's recent fight, Shakur Stevenson, Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor, Canelo Alvarez, all these big names in boxing that are kind of all happening at the same time. So we thought, what better time to have Tommy back on and drop some boxing knowledge on us than now. So that's going to be a little bit later in the episode. But before we get to Tommy, a little rundown, as we always do. We're going to start with our first segment on the marquee. Then we're going to talk through some recaps from both Bellator and UFC from this past weekend. We're going to find out who rose and who fell in our very own rankings system, the Priaulx Rankings. We're going to find out what's new in the MMA world with going inside the MMA sphere with Omar. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend, UFC Fight Night Font versus Vera. And then we're going to find out what's going on in the boxing world. And then we're going to end with a little bit of trivia, as we always do. So before we get into any of that, gentlemen, if you're watching this right now, thank you so much. It means so much to us. We love doing this show. It's been our little dream for some years. We started this as a text thread between the three of us. Actually, another guy as well. Shout out to Kenny. And we always would mention this from time to time of like, we should have a podcast. So guys, we're basically having the same conversation that we would be having anyway on text. Now we're just recording it and sharing it with you all. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode. And better than anything, go ahead and share this video with somebody who you know might love MMA and hasn't yet heard about our show. If you want audio only, hey, we got you. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, find us on social media. We are at @&new_MMA show in all the places. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the things. All right, let's get into this. This week, gentlemen, the name on the marquee has got to be Jessica Bate Estaca, which means pile driver, Andrade, who this past Saturday at UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Andrade at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, defeated Amanda Lemos by submission via standing arm triangle at 3 minutes and 13 seconds of the very first round. Mark, let me send it over to you first. What are your thoughts on this statement win, a statement finish by none other than Bate Estaque Jessica Andrade?
My thoughts are that Jessica Andrade is a savage. I mean, that girl has some wild finishes on her resume, and this is certainly high up on the list. The first ever standing arm triangle in UFC history. She is stupid strong, and she must have one hell of a squeeze. Even the commentary couldn't believe that she didn't need to take it down to finish that thing. Unfortunately, in terms of the fight, we didn't get to see that much of it to try to learn about Lemos and how she stacks up against this, elite level that she's kind of hit now. She was landing some nasty strikes, which we knew she was capable of, especially early in fights. Andrade kind of came out a bit more reserved than usual, so it wasn't quite that car crash that we were saying it had a chance to be in round one. But then, boom, kind of just as the fight gets going, out of nowhere, Andrade slips in that standing arm triangle. You didn't think it was going to do it, but it did it. I mean, who the hell pulls that off? Freaking crazy finish. Great win for her, and a hell of a statement in her return to the 115-pound division to remind people just where she stacks up.
Omar, let me bring you in here now. Share your thoughts on this statement finish by Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised more people don't get that choke, if we're being 100% honest. That position, I feel like, is very, very common when you're working in the clinch and when you're doing clinch work. Like, I can tell you, when I train, one of the things that I do, especially to people that are taller than me, is I slip under that arm and I basically get them in an arm triangle of sorts. But I use it more to control for knees, control the body, hit the leg, and then kind of break away and create distance. In MMA, you have a little bit more, obviously, creativity to do what you want. But every time I get in that position, I always think to myself, I can just choke this motherfucker out right here. Like, if I have the position, I'm in the position already. Just, you just got to adjust your arms and hit the squeeze. So I'm surprised that people in the clinch don't either go for this a little bit more or don't catch it a little bit more, especially guys who are higher level in submissions. But it was dope to see Andrade find that submission when it didn't really seem like she was having a lot of success in the stand-up all too much. And I wonder if that was Lemos's, striking or just her distance management there, because Andrade has always kind of been the shorter person, even against people who are her same weight or relatively her same size. But I also wonder if the moment got to Lemos as well. She seems... It looked like there was a lot of weight on her getting into that cage, walking, kind of getting that fight started. It didn't look like how Andrade looked, where this was another day at the office at this point for her. So I think we'll see good things from Lemos going forward. I don't think this is really a setback by any stretch of the imagination. I think it was a wake-up call. She's very, very skilled. She's very, very good. And like you guys said, this is definitely one of these Andrade finishes where she can use her brute force to just really get this submission. It's kind of crazy how she got it and because even when she got it, to be fair, I didn't think that she had it. I saw her working for it. She didn't even really look like she was struggling to squeeze either. She just kind of looked like
it was the readjustment that did it.
Yeah. It was a few
when it got loose for the second, and then she retightened it. All of a sudden, it was way tighter than it had been for the duration.
And you could see Lemos's face. As time went on, her face got more and more panicked.
That's right when her face, right when her expression changed.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if Lemos at first was kind of relaxed because she thought that it was just sort of a defensive position. I don't know. I'm not a jiu-jitsu expert. I mean, obviously, Omar, respect to you and your analysis. I do wonder what the take of a Henner Gracie would be, of those real subtle jiu-jitsu black belt nuances of maybe Lemos thought this is just a momentary thing. She's going to let this go, and then Andrade readjusts, squeezes tighter, and it was a wrap, pun intended.
Yeah. I think
there are things that you can do to defend yourself against that position instead of letting yourself get sunk in more and more, because there were moments in those adjustments where she could have mounted a defense. She could have tried to because there's at least 3 things there that I know of that you could have done in that situation. So at least try and work to get out of that situation. Could it have worked? Maybe not. Maybe the choke was already very, too tight. But there were moments of readjustment where there could have been some fight there to get out of that situation.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about Amanda Lemos real quick. Mark, let me send it back to you. I thought Lemos actually looked really good up until that sort of that, what would you call it? That tangle happened and she got caught in that arm triangle. Where do you think Lemos goes from here in terms of her next opponent? We can parlay it into that, but also your thoughts on Lemos's performance up until the choke.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say she didn't look good because she was winning the exchanges, but I also think that a factor was that it seemed like Andrade very consciously came out and said, okay, this girl is known as this round 1 berserker, and usually I'm someone who plays into that, and I am going to kind of wait and see and just not necessarily fire back at her and let this turn into any type of blow-for-blow type deal. It seemed like that was the strategy Andrade came out with. So, yes, Lemos looked good, but I almost think Andrade may have been kind of allowing that to see what Lemos was going to be throwing at her and make sure that it didn't turn crazy right out of the gate. As for her matchup, I actually think that the answer for Tecia Torres that we were kind of struggling to find someone who made sense a couple weeks ago could now be Amanda Lemos. I think coming off of that loss, her and Torres actually makes a lot of sense, and I think that that's a matchup that has high excitement potential.
Okay. Let's transition this and go over to the winner, Jessica Andrade. Omar, looking at the division, where do you think that Andrade goes from here again?
Well, I think at this point it would be you have the top of the division that's kind of already in the works, right? Wei Li's going to be fighting Joanna, Carla, and Rose are about to fight. Marina Rodriguez just ended up winning that decision against Yan Xiaonan, who's number 6 in the division, I believe. I think Jessica and Marina could probably throw down at this point. I don't know if they fought in the past before. I don't think they have.
No.
So at this point, especially from the rankings perspective and where they're at, that's probably the best place to put them.
Okay. Mark, do you have a take? Women's strawweight, where does Jessica Andrade go after this big statement win?
It's got to be Marina Rodriguez. It's got to be. She's sitting near the top of this division without an opponent. Like Omar said, she's had to watch Namajunas and Esparza get booked. She had to watch Wei Li and Joanna get booked. And she was kind of left without anyone else that made sense. Everyone else is kind of too low for her to fight, or she's already beaten them, and she was like the odd person out. And now, boom, here it is. Jessica Andrade hops in your division, has a hell of a resume, gets a big statement finish right out of the gate, and I think that is literally the perfect fight that just kind of fell into our laps. And I think that's a toss-up. I think that might be a pick-em fight odds-wise.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Anything else you guys want to say about this fight before we move on?
I don't know if we've said it already, but this was the first standing guillotine in UFC history, both men and women. So,
wow! To finish a fight,
it was an arm triangle, not a guillotine.
Arm triangle. Arm triangle. Is that what I said?
I heard you.
Standing guillotine?
I heard you. I heard arm triangle.
My bad.
You said guillotine.
Standing arm triangle. My bad.
This was the first one to finish a fight in UFC history. Get out of here. Wow.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. I'm surprised more people haven't really even attempted something like that before, but good on Andrade for finding that opportunity and committing to it, because a lot of people probably wouldn't have.
Yep. Also, that happened so fast.
Yep.
You have to watch it over again because you miss when she wraps her up.
We've seen chokes like that before too, where we're not really sure if they're in or not, and then all of a sudden you see the person's face and they're gasping for dear life, and you had no idea how. It
wasn't the most incredibly fast submission on the card, but we will get to that later.
Okay, moving on. Last weekend, we're going to move over to the Bellator side of MMA. Bellator did some fun things. They hosted not one, but 2 events over the course of the weekend and consecutive evenings. Bellator 278 on Friday night and 279 on Saturday night, both at the NSB Arena in Honolulu, Hawaii. Woo-woo! Okay,
shout out
let
UFC,
us
do your job. Sorry.
UFC, yes. If you don't know, UFC has yet to have an event in Hawaii. My God.
They're running out of
BJ Penn.
excuses too.
Make it happen. No,
By the way, it is governor that he's running for.
I know, yeah.
I knew it was bigger than mayor. It's freaking governor.
Yes, BJ Penn, UFC legend, is running for governor in Hawaii, and one of the things he's running on, right, is that he's going to try to get the UFC to Hawaii.
Yes.
Anyway, let's plow on here. So 2 events spanning 2 nights. We're going to bounce around a little bit back and forth to the events. So let's first talk about Bellator 279, the main event. This would be on the marquee for Bellator. So Cris Cyborg in the women's featherweight division defends her women's featherweight title against a very tough Aussie, Arlene Angerfist Blencowe, in a unanimous decision effort. 49-45 on all 3 judges' scorecards. Omar, give us your impressions of this performance by Cyborg, as well as the very gritty performance of Blencowe.
I mean, Arlene Blencowe arguably gave Cyborg one of the more difficult fights of the latter half of her career. I don't know about knocked her down, but she definitely got her off balance a few times in the striking department. She took a lot of damage in that fight. But she was game, man. She struck with Cyborg. She stuck in there and sat down on her punches. At one point, she pulled a Max Holloway, stood in the middle of the ring and pointed down at the thing and said, "Let's go." I don't know. I would imagine it was probably to get Cyborg off of her game, because Cyborg at one point was being very technical with her striking, popping jabs, moving around, quarter turning. I mean, she was not trying to get hit anymore by this girl. And Blencowe was ready for more damage and more damage. So it was a hell of a fight. I gotta say, Cyborg's fights usually end so quickly it's hard to enjoy them, but this one was a good time, man. This one was fun to watch from beginning to end. So props to both of those women. It was a hell of a fight.
Mark, go ahead and share your thoughts on this title defense of Cris Cyborg defending her Bellator strap.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say I didn't even notice this until right now, really. But it's pretty cool that there were 3 major MMA cards last week, and all 3 main events were women. Like, I knew, we were talking about a lot of women fights, but I didn't process that every single main event was women. And we're going to get into Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano later, which is the biggest fight in boxing right now. So pretty cool for women's fighting. But, in terms of this fight, Omar said it. Arlene Blencowe was in there to scrap with Cyborg. Like, she put it on her the best that she could, and that girl is all heart. But with that being said, she lost every round of the fight. Yes. Cris Cyborg has not lost a step, in my opinion. She's still so good. She didn't get the finish here like she did in their first fight, but she was still dominant, still impressive. She showed off every facet of her game, and kind of like Omar said, too, it was nice to see 25 minutes out of Cyborg and kind of see everything she can do and appreciate it. It's going to take someone really special to stand up to her in Bellator. That person doesn't seem to be there right now. Kayla Harrison could have potentially been it. But sometimes these things happen in the fight game, and for now it seems like Cyborg is just destined to keep beating up girls who are not on her level.
Yeah. Mark, staying with you here, let's discuss where these 2 ladies go from here. Let's start with the winner, Cris Cyborg. What do you think is next for her? Or really, because she's the champ, really that's a question about who do you think is going to challenge for the strap next?
Yeah, I don't know about who's actually next, but she needs to fight Kat Zingano. Like, she's the only person that's even intriguing in that division in Bellator right now. They need to find a way to get those 2 in the cage. I know they were trying for it for this time, and it didn't work out for whatever reasons with Kat, but they got to sit those 2 in a room or give them money or whatever and figure it out, because it is, Cyborg would still be a big favorite in that fight, of course, but it's the only fight they have that even carries some intrigue. So I hope they are actively trying to make that fight.
Omar, any other thoughts?
No, that is the fight that needs to happen. It was the fight that should have happened before that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That needs to now happen just as badly as it did before.
On the roster of women's featherweights in Bellator, Mark, are there any other names that you would want to see? I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about Blencowe next opponent per se. But now that I've said that stupidly, just throw out a name.
She could fight like a Leslie Smith. I don't think they've crossed paths yet, unless I'm wrong, and they kind of both are scrappers, so that one works.
Okay. My bad. Sorry. Stick to the script, Michael. let's move on. Unless there's anything else you guys want to say about Cyborg's continued dominance in building her legacy.
I feel like she's gotten more technical over the years. I don't know if it's just me, but she looks good, man. She's not running through people, I feel like, the way she used to, I guess, as consistently, but she's super technical now.
Yeah, she's calmed down a little bit. Maybe Amanda Nunes has something to do with that.
Well, getting your ass knocked out will do that.
Okay, moving on. We're going to go back in time by 24 hours. The evening before Bellator 278, in the main event of this event, a little bit of, like a history was made. Not a history, but for somebody personally. Liz Gorilla Carmouche snatched the Bellator women's flyweight title from Juliana Velasquez by TKO. The official time coming in 4 minutes and 47 seconds of round number 4. My goodness, Liz Carmouche, who was maybe the biggest moment of her career before this, was losing to Miss Ronda Rousey many years ago. I don't have the event or date, pulled up, but that was a long time ago. She's been in the sport for a minute, and it's nice to see Liz Carmouche hanging around long enough to get herself a title. Omar, let me start with you. What was your impression of Liz Carmouche winning this fight, and your impression of her getting the title from the very talented Juliana Velasquez?
I didn't find this stoppage as controversial as I feel like a lot of folks have made it seem. Really quick, just because you brought it up and I was curious. 2013 is when we introduced women into the UFC with that inaugural fight for the women's bantamweight champion. And at that point, that was her 11th her 11th pro fight, but she had lost to Sarah Kaufman and Marlos Kunin before then, who, if you don't know who they were basically OGs in the women's fight game. Marlos Kunin I loved for a long time, and then one day in a Strikeforce card, a young woman by the name of Misha Cupcake Tate came in as one of the largest underdogs and beat the holy hell out of Marlos Kunin. I fell in love with Misha Tate in that moment. We got off track there. Point is, Liz Carmouche, it's great to see the evolution of Liz Carmouche, because I don't think she was ready to be UFC champion back in the day. I think she's definitely improved her game, especially in this later half of her career. She was very up and down with her performances. The reality was there were a lot of people that were just better in a lot of areas than she was. She was never, excelling in one specific area. What Liz Carmouche did have, though, was strength and a lot of toughness. But I think at this point she's evolved, I think, as a martial artist, and she's getting there. I think the competition too is a little bit more her, in her department. What happened?
You froze.
Oh, you're back. There you go.
You're back.
So I think the competition is a little bit more her speed at this point, especially being her in her Bellator run. But that's not to say Juliana Velasquez is any slouch. That girl put it on Liz Carmouche, and it was a very, very competitive fight. It was very back and forth. When we get down to it, though, that finishing sequence, I feel like people are upset about the stoppage considering the circumstances. They're trying to throw nuance into a situation that nuance shouldn't be thrown into. The fact is that she was in a crucifix position. She didn't even look like she knew what to do to get out of that position. And she was getting elbows rained down on her. There was about a minute left, maybe a little bit less than a minute left in the round. And she's getting elbowed to death. What do you want? So are we going to wait until her head cracks open? Are we going to wait until she's knocked out and completely unconscious? At some point, you have to realize that it needs to be a series of unanswered strikes and not defending yourself that causes a stoppage. And that is exactly what happened. She had no answer for those strikes. She was getting struck continuously there was no reason for us to think that she was going to stop getting hit by those elbows. I thought it was a good stoppage. I understand the frustration. Maybe the argument is those elbows didn't look as bad or whatever the argument is. The reality is she was getting struck. She was not defending herself by any stretch of the imagination. And that's how things get finished. We've seen it normally all the time. So this is no different. I think we're throwing nuance into something that has no business being in that particular situation.
Mark, Liz Carmouche finally gets a belt of her own. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like to see that me and Omar are on the same page on this one. And we both picked Carmouche last week as well, so props to us on that. But yeah, Omar kind of covered the history of Carmouche and how cool this is for her to have a belt. So I will focus a little more on the stoppage. I've heard a lot of bad takes on this fight. I get it that the stoppage was a bit controversial, but A, it wasn't that bad, as Omar said, and B, it was an even fight to that point. Like, I'm hearing all these people saying, like, oh my God, Velasquez got robbed. She was up 3 rounds and they gifted it to Carmouche, blah, 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 blah. First of all, I thought Carmouche won round 1. And yeah, Velasquez wins 2 and 3, but even if the fight didn't get stopped right there, Liz would have won the 4th round. So it would have been 2-2 going into the 5th, and Liz would have had all the momentum. So this narrative of like Velasquez was handling Carmouche and then the ref just gave it to Carmouche, like I don't even understand what these people are talking about. That's way off. But as for the stoppage, would I have liked to see 5 more seconds? Sure, I would have. I'll admit that. Do I think anything would have changed in those 5 seconds? No, I don't. I think it would have just been stopped in 5 more seconds. Maybe less people would be whining. But Velasquez was trapped in a crucifix. She was eating clean elbows to the face. She had stopped moving her face on the last few, was literally laying there dead still, letting her face be elbowed. And in 5 more seconds, I don't think she would have been finding a way to change that situation. So even if the trigger was a little less quick on the stoppage, I think Liz just wins in 5 more seconds anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of a lot being made over something that wasn't so controversial. And I'm happy for Liz. Happy to see her get a belt. Great win for her.
Staying with you, Mark. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to add that that's a good point because you're right. At one point, she just stopped moving. Not even her face. She like stopped moving. And I wonder if that was just a choice by her to accept the position. She knew she had, just a little bit of time left in the round and to just ride it out. Crush my face as badly as you can in the time that you have. I'll make it out of this round. That can't be like the game plan, right? Like we can't allow that to be how MMA works. That's just madness. So again, reiterating, I think it was a good stoppage.
It's like when a guy turtles up and he gets in, punches are being rained down and the ref has to step in. And then the guy is like, why'd you step in? It's like, dude, you picked a bad time to turtle up and take 20 punches unanswered.
Exactly.
Yeah. And turtling up is not defending yourself intelligently.
Right.
And so similar situation here. Okay.
Well said.
Mark, staying with you, Liz Carmouche, what's next for her?
So I kind of think, even though I'm saying it wasn't controversial, that a rematch seems to still be the obvious choice. I know Liz said she kind of doesn't love the immediate rematches, but there's not really other options. Like Denise Keelholtz just lost to Velasquez. Watanabe just lost to Carmouche. If McFarlane would have won on this card, maybe they could have done her. Granted, she trains with Carmouche, so I don't know if they even would have done that. But she blew it. She lost to Justine Kish. Kish is not at any point where she deserves a title shot. She just lost her fight prior to that one. So there's like not really anyone that makes any sense. So I think for the sake of having a compelling title fight, and now you have this built-in story, obviously, and Velasquez is pissed, I think you absolutely run that back. It was a competitive fight. Velasquez didn't seem to be terribly dangerous, but she was scoring with her range striking for sure. Mm-hmm. Liz's wrestling didn't seem to be deterred by Juliana's judo. It's an interesting matchup, and I think it'll be interesting to see it again.
Nice.
We should also point out Velasquez is out here talking about she's trying to get an appeal. I promise you she will never get that passed. Yeah, it's hard enough getting an appeal to work in MMA, let alone when you don't actually have a case. So
yeah.
I wouldn't hold my breath for that one.
Omar, do you think that the rematch is the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, Mark laid it out perfectly. The landscape right now of Bellator's flyweight division is just not it's just not at a point where Liz can fight somebody and it makes sense. We could throw, if there was like a Hamzat kind of person in there, we could throw number 9. Justine Kish is just not that person, right? Because she just entered the rankings off of her win against McFarlane, but she's number 9 now at this point, right? So it just doesn't make sense. The Velasquez one, I think at this point, is probably the one that's more compelling out of everybody in that division right now anyway. I'm just hoping that there are some of those people on this in that flyweight division that fight soon and make things compelling for themselves, because that division does need a little bit of an awakening for sure.
Yeah. Okay, let's plow on, boys. Over the weekend, staying with Bellator, across these 2 consecutive events, a number of fights went down in the Bellator World Grand Prix for the bantamweight division. Now let us talk about during Bellator 278 on Friday night, Danny Sabatello unanimous decision victory over Jornel Lugo, 30-26 on all 3 judges' scorecards, and now Sabatello will go on to face Leandro Higo. Omar, let me start with you this time. What were your thoughts on Sabatello getting it done?
I mean, it's kind of an ass beating, that fight. Round 2 might have been the worst round of the entire fight. As far as the ass beating is concerned, that I'm pretty sure was the 10-8 round. Yeah, man. It just, honestly, that whole fight just seemed like it was Lugo trying to survive. He was almost more than a step behind in that fight the entire time, and by the end of it, just looked like he was trying to survive, man. It got rougher to watch as the fight went on, just because of how good Sabatello was really putting it on him. It was crazy. It was a good fight from Sabatello.
Mark, your thoughts?
Danny Sabatello is a guy. Like, that's a guy. I think Leandro Higo is in trouble, and I think that Danny Sabatello and Raufeon Stots is going to be one hell of a semifinal, assuming we get to that point. Obviously, we'll talk about Stots in a bit. Sabatello tortured Jornel Lugo, man. He was utterly relentless, never stops putting it on you. It had to be an almost helpless feeling for Jornel Lugo dealing with Sabatello's pressure, and Jornel Lugo is good, and he got worked. And then Sabatello just kills the post-fight interview, talking about his upcoming matchup with Leandro Higo, where he goes, yeah, it's a great matchup with Higo because you look at him and he fucking sucks, and you look at me and I'm really good. It's just an incredible quote.
Yeah.
This guy is very quickly becoming must-see TV.
Nice. Okay, Omar, what do you think about his matchup with Higo next?
Let's find out. So... is this? Dude, their website has me messed up.
If you have technical, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good here. You're talking about for Sabatello?
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, so now he's in the rankings. He's officially number 9 in their rankings, which I think is perfectly fine. But to be honest, his skill level, I would probably put him up there with somebody.
Well, he's fighting Higo. We know who he's fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
Leandro Higo.
Yeah, I said it already, but I think Higo's in trouble. Maybe his jits can be a threat. I guess we haven't seen like a true jits guy under Sabatello, but I don't know if I'm seeing it. I think we might be marching toward a Sabatello Stots semifinal in this thing.
Ooh, yeah. God, I would love that.
Yeah, I don't really I don't have any reason to believe Sabatello can't run over Higo. Even the Stots one, his takedown defense is serious and his striking is a problem, but Sabatello is a beast, man. Sabatello is a beast. Man. I'm going to be very interested to see if somebody can stop him, how they stop him, because Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. On the same evening, Bellator 278, also as a qualifier for the Bellator World Grand Prix in the bantamweight division, Enrique Barzola defeats Nikita Mikhailov by unanimous decision. By the way, Nikita was a late replacement for one Josh Hill. Barzola gets it done. Unanimous decision, 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards. It is unanimous, gentlemen. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. Share your thoughts on Barzola rolling.
I said it last week, and I will say it again. Enrique Barzola has been underrated. He is good everywhere the fight goes. You don't get to breathe, whether he's striking, wrestling, grappling. He's smart defensively. He doesn't have an elite skill that makes him like jump off the page, but he's a modern fighter. Like Enrique Barzola does MMA. You know what I mean? And he looks really good right now.
Absolutely. Omar, your thoughts?
Yeah, Mikhailov gassed like super early in that fight. It looked like he was done by the end of round 1, maybe even towards the end, and not even the end of round 1. Barzola Barzola, I don't even know how many submission attempts Barzola had in there, but I should look up the stat to see exactly how many he threw up, because he was throwing up submissions from like every position that you could think of. And he did. He just seemed to be better in every position. Every time you thought Mikhailov might have had a sweep or some kind of reversal, and you saw, some sort of fight from him, Barzola's like, oh, that's nice. And then he reverses him. And now we're back to Barzola controlling the fight again. He's a beast, man. Barzola is definitely very, very good. I don't think I really knew about him before this fight, but I got to say, I'm at a point now where I really think that he might beat a Magomedov. I think it's totally possible that he beats a Magomedov.
Right. Speaking of, go ahead. Especially,
I was going to say, go for it.
With this win at Bellator 278, Barzola now is going to move on to match up with Magomedov. So I was just going to say, Omar, you're going to stick with you and ask for your thoughts on that impending matchup, but it looks like you are hopeful for one Enrique Barzola.
I am. I think his skills are very interesting, and his pace, I think, is also very interesting. Magomedov kind of relies on being able to control, being able to be heavy. Barzola doesn't look like he allows that. It looks like he defies physics when it comes to that. So I'd be very interested to see how he deals with Magomedov's kind of top game and top pressure, because it seems like he can, and he seems like he can come out of there with a submission. He may not have gotten it in this fight, but I was going to say he may not have gotten a submission with all the submission attempts he threw up in this fast fight, but he might get one off of Magomedov.
Mark, your initial thoughts on Barzola mashing up with Magomedov.
Yeah, this is kind of the test of exactly what I was just mentioning. Like, we'll see if the well-roundedness of Barzola is enough to handle someone who actually has an elite skill, which is the wrestling of Magomedov. I'm sure Magomedov will be the betting favorite, but I wouldn't rule out Barzola, man. He'll make Magomedov work, if nothing else, so it should be a good one.
Nice. Okay, let's move on. Also, Mark, you should name your next child Priaulx. That's what it's like. Okay. Yeah. Or my son like Hans Hansen. That's silly. Okay.
That is what it's like.
Moving on. Bellator 279. Quarterfinal fights in the Bantamweight Bellator World Grand Prix. Raufeon Super Stots. Oh my God, this fight. This guy's kind of electric. I'm becoming a Stots fan. Round 3 TKO over Juan Archuleta. The official time coming at 16 seconds of round number 3. And in doing so, he advances in the Bellator Bantamweight World Grand Prix. God, that's a mouthful. As the interim Bellator Bantamweight World Champ. Mark, let me start with you this time again. What were your thoughts and your initial reaction to Raufeon Stots' devastating knee, ultimately getting the TKO over Juan Archuleta?
Raufeon Stots has officially arrived in Bellator's elite. He is, as you said, the interim bantamweight champion, and he did it in style, finishing Juan Archuleta. It was a really competitive fight through 2 rounds. Archuleta may have even been up 2-0. Granted, they were both close, but Stots was looking good as well. And if you remember from my preview last week, I said I thought the first and maybe even the second would go to Archuleta. He always tends to start strong, but I thought that the tide would turn in the second, maybe going into the third round. Granted, I thought it would turn in that Stots would start timing his takedowns and find ways to control Archuleta. I did not think it would turn by Stots throwing a head kick and having his knee connect dead on with Archuleta's face. So that was wild. That was a sick finish for Raufeon Stots, and we will see if he can live up to the fact that he is now the number 1 ranked bantamweight as we go through the rest of this Grand Prix here.
Omar, share your thoughts?
Yeah, I loved this fight. The fight was super fun to watch. I thought it was a close fight up until we got into that was the third round, right? For that one?
Yep.
And I think everybody thought it was a head kick that kind of glanced off of his head when it first went up, but that was a bad knee right to his face. I mean, that's as devastating as ending as it comes, especially because as close as it was, I had Archuleta up 2 rounds. So that's got to be a little stinger right there for him at the end.
Yeah, man. So next steps here, quick thoughts on Stots matching up with a winner of Higo Sabatello? Mark?
If it's Higo, I think that will be the Stots show. As I said, if it's Sabatello, which I think it will be, I think that's going to be an awesome fight, and I hope that's the one we get.
Omar?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I want it to be Sabatello because I'm kind of at a point now where I feel like it's like the immovable object versus the immovable force deal.
Irresistible.
Yes.
I don't know.
Something like that. We're not.
Something like that.
This isn't a science
Scramble.
podcast.
Give me the scrambles between those two guys.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think that'll be the most entertaining fight that I think we can get in the end.
Yeah.
All right, moving right along. Also on this night in the bantamweight division in the Bellator Bantamweight World Grand Prix, Patchy Mix defeats Kyoji Horiguchi by unanimous decision. In doing so, also advancing to the second round of the Bellator Bantamweight World Grand Prix. Omar, let me start with you. What was your reaction to Patchy Mix getting it done over Mr. Horiguchi?
So a few thoughts that crossed my mind as I watched this fight. Do they test at Bellator? Was the first, right? The second was, did they weigh them properly? Because Patchy Mix, that they are not the same size. They do not even look remotely the same size.
That man's got to have light bones.
Dude,
Yeah, man.
I felt bad for Horiguchi in that fight. That looked mean to put him up against a dude who looked that big. And the grappling, dude, the grappling showed it though. I mean, that grappling is crazy. That control is wild. And poor Horiguchi did everything in his power to not get choked out in that fight. But I mean, you know, we should give Horiguchi credit where credit is due. He spent the first round kind of getting mauled quite a bit. Then he adjusts and starts to kind of bounce in and out, doesn't really let Mix get a hold of him in the first place. But by the third round, that starts to not work as much because all Mix needs is one takedown to kind of secure the round. So now we're stuck in a place where Horiguchi kind of has an answer as to how to deal with this, but can't screw up by any stretch of the imagination, because if he gets taken down, he's going to lose that round. And it was close, man. It was a close little chess match that happened there. But yeah, I've got a lot of questions for Mix, man. I hope they're testing over there, man. That's all. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Yeah, Mark, care to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I was almost perfect here on these fights. I went 6 for 6 on the rest of these fights we've discussed to this point, but I got this one very wrong. I knew the size difference was going to be huge. I even made a point of it last week, but God, when you see it on your screen, I was immediately like, oh, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have picked Kyoji Horiguchi. Like, it was such a drastic difference. Holy hell. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, man, I don't know if Kyoji's going to be able to keep him off him the way I necessarily thought he was going to be able to. And that's more or less what the problem was. Like, granted, I did think Kyoji could create more scrambles and get up more successfully than he did. But Patchy Mix is a hell of a grappler, and it turned out that we were wrong to think that he couldn't control Horiguchi on the ground, because he absolutely could. And when they were on the feet, like Omar said, Kyoji was winning. He definitely won rounds 2 and 4 in that fight for me by doing exactly what Omar said, kind of staying away, managing to just not get grabbed. One of them he did get taken down, but he got back up. But because of the size of Mix, Kyoji couldn't even be that effective. Like, he couldn't really use his weapons on the feet, even because he had to be so careful to not get grabbed. Like, he couldn't even enter the range successfully. Yeah. So it was just a problematic matchup for Kyoji to work any of his game, really. And of course, Mix wins rounds 1 and 5. So it kind of came down to round 3, which was close, but I thought Mix did enough in that round. I scored a 48-47 for him. I didn't give him a 10-8 in round 1, even though it was dominant, because to me it was basically the same as that Aljo Yan round 1, but without like the 7 or 8 bombs that Aljo landed, and I feel like that was like the differentiator that made me have to make his a 10-8. So I didn't think this was, but I still thought Mix won the fight 48-47, and I'm honestly really impressed. I think I maybe have been underrating Patchy Mix to this point, and that was a big performance from him.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Mark, sticking with you, what are your early thoughts on Patchy Mix now matching up with the winner of Magomedov Barzola?
Yeah, it's crazy. This Bellator tournament that had like Kyoji Horiguchi in it and Sergio Pettis in it originally and so on, it's kind of quickly turned into a grappler's delight here. But it will be interesting to see Mix try to work his game against either one of those guys, against either the wrestling of Magomedov or kind of the scrambling, do-it-all ability of Enrique Barzola. So whichever one it is, it'll be an interesting matchup for him.
Omar, who do you like for Patchy Mix more, Magomedov or Barzola?
I think the Barzola one would be more fun, but I'm interested to see if Patchy Mix's control could stop Barzola from doing all this crazy shit that he likes to do. Patchy Mix has got probably one of the strongest and most painful looking body triangles I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Looks awful, just god awful. And so if he's able to pull that off, I mean, people aren't getting out of there very easily. I think it took Horiguchi 5 rounds to be able to spin out once. It was crazy to watch that kind of control. So, Magomedov is trying to work a top game. Patchy Mix might very well have the type of bottom game to switch that up. But Barzola is the one who I think would put himself in a position with all of his scrambles and the craziness to get put in a position where Mix can control him. So I just think it'd be a little bit more fun fight. I think the Magomedov would kind of get stale from time to time because I think neither one of them will want to advance or risk losing a position.
I can see that.
But the Mix Barzola one is chef's kiss.
Nice.
I'll just say quick note before we move on. It's a shame that we lost Kyoji from this tournament, who we all love. But you have another huge name in Archuleta who also lost, and that would actually be a cool fight that Bellator could make in the meantime while this tournament is going on to keep Kyoji and Archuleta in there.
Love that. Love that point.
That's a good one.
Any other things you guys want to say about this fight or the Bantamweight World Grand Prix in general? Okay, moving on.
The Bantamweight division is dope. That's all I'm going to say. This is a good division that Bellator actually has.
Yeah, it's fun.
Absolutely. Okay, moving right along. Let's do this, gentlemen. Let us go back to UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Andrade, but we will throw the remainder of these bouts that we are recapping into our lightning round. And if you don't know, folks, if you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. Our lightning round is when I challenge these two distinguished MMA pundits to give me their lightning takes, limiting their valuable takes to just a phrase or two. All right, let us go. UFC Fight Night, Lemos versus Andrade. In the co-main event, Claudio El Nino Puyes, round 1 submission of Clay Guida. The official time coming at 3 minutes and 1 second of the very first round. Mark, go first.
That was the filthiest knee bar I have ever seen in my life, and I don't know if it can ever be topped. It was one of the filthiest submissions, period, I've ever seen in my life. Clay Guida was never not in danger the entire time that he was on the ground with Puyes, and his jits is disgusting, and he is officially a name to watch at this point.
Omar, take it.
I love that kid, man. He might have just taken over Miguel Baez's spot in my heart. I love the knee bar. That's his 3rd knee bar now in like his last 4 fights. So just the kid is a beast. What can you say?
Okay, moving down into the women's flyweight division, Macy, the future Barber, gets the win over Montana De La Rosa by unanimous decision. Omar, take it this time.
Yeah, it was good. Very good performance by Macy Barber. Very aggressive performance. I was disappointed in De La Rosa. I thought she could do more. She kind of looked like she stopped trying to fight after a certain point. She wasn't even really trying to work out of those positions. So good on Barber. Glad to see her back in the run.
Mark, take it.
That went more or less how I thought it would. Maybe I didn't see quite so much work against the fence, but I thought Macy was just too strong and too much of an athlete for Montana's game to work against, and a nice win for Macy to keep her progression going here.
Okay, moving on into the featherweight division, Charles Jourdain, round 1 submission over Lando Venata. Mark, go first.
Honestly, it was kind of disappointing that we didn't get to see these guys bang and go strike for strike longer than we did because it was fun while it lasted, but a really nice finish for Charles Jourdain. A great statement for him about his legitimacy in this division, and he literally choked the pants off of Lando Venata.
Omar, take it. Jourdain getting it done over Venata by sub.
It was a fun stand-up fight until an opportunity presented itself. Jourdain jumped on it and capitalized on it. Went one arm to hold the guillotine up until he was able to finish it with two. So it was a beautiful performance, very technical submission. I loved it.
Jourdain. Okay, moving on into the middleweight division, what actually became a catchweight at 190 pounds. Marc-Andre Barriault, round one submission over Jordan Wright. Omar, take it.
Yeah, I think this shine of Jordan Wright's kind of quickly going away. I had a lot of high hopes because of his skill set, but it doesn't look like he's putting it all together. He got choked out real bad in that fight, got controlled, got flipped. I mean, it wasn't great, man. It was a great performance by Barriault, but a really bad one by Jordan Wright.
Mark, Barriault subs Wright. What's your take?
Credit to Barriault for still coming out so aggressive after getting badly knocked out in his last fight. He walked Jordan Wright down. He smothered his distance striking game and took him out. Nasty guillotine.
Okay, moving down into the prelims now. In the welterweight division, Sergey Hondoshko, round two TKO over Dwight Grant. Mark, go first.
These guys both came out banging. I've never been too impressed with the technique of Dwight Grant, but he dropped Hondoshko twice here, which maybe makes me question Hondoshko a bit as well, but a great finish for him nonetheless, and he moves to 2-1 in the UFC now after a long layoff, so we'll see what he can do going forward.
Omar, Hondoshko, impressive TKO in their second round over Dwight Grant. What's your take?
Yeah, very impressive knockout, and I'm officially over Dwight Grant.
Okay, moving on into the light heavyweight division, the Aussie Tyson Pedro, round one TKO over Ike Villanueva. Omar, go first.
This was the main event in my heart, my guys. This was it, man. Tyson Pedro, baby. He's back. He's back. He looks good. He looks ready. He looks healed up. Let's go, fucking Tyson Pedro, baby. Let's go.
Okay. Mark, what's your take? Tyson Pedro TKOing Mr. Villanueva.
You love to see it. Tyson Pedro fought astoundingly calmly for a guy who hadn't fought in 3 years. He looked like a much more mature version of himself, and that was scary. If he has improved in the way that it looked like he may have in that fight, he is going to be a scary guy at 205.
Okay, moving on into the bantamweight division, the Mongolian murderer, Aori Kilong, round one TKO over Cameron Else. Mark, go first.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell Keith Peterson was watching in this fight. I mean, that went on like a good 30 seconds longer than it needed to. Like, Else rolled over, he gave up. Like, it was very obvious. So I don't know why that took so long, but a great body shot to start it off for Aori Kilong and a great finish and win for him.
Omar, what's your take?
I remember my parents watching this one. We were all at the house together with my in-laws watching this fight, and all I remember hearing was, "Stop the fight!" Yeah, went on a little bit longer than it should have, but Mongolian murderer is probably the most apt description for that man because, damn, he melted that kid. It was a great body shot. Great body shot.
Okay, moving on into the welterweight division, Preston Parsons, unanimous decision over Evan Elder. Omar, give us your quick take.
Parsons was dominant. I enjoyed watching that fight. Let's go, Preston Parsons.
Mark, take it.
Elder was tough as hell on short notice, but Parsons looked great. The wrestling was especially notable, and he looked pretty well-rounded overall. So we'll see where he goes from here, but good win.
Okay, moving down into the light heavyweight division, Felipe Lins, unanimous decision over Marcin Prachnio. Mark, what's your take?
Prachnio is a tough and dangerous guy, and you could see that even here in his loss. So for Lins to move down to light heavyweight and fight that fight the way he did, he fought a smart fight, well-rounded fight. He mixed in the wrestling and got a quality decision. That's a good win for him, debuting at 205.
Omar, give us your take.
Yeah, and considering Lins, I thought, dropped the first round and come back to win the last two.
Yep.
I thought it was a great adjustment from the second round on. Credit to Lins for that fight.
Okay, to play us out, in the welterweight division, the first fight of the night of UFC Fight Night, Andrade versus Lemos. Lemos versus Andrade. Mike Jackson in the welterweight division gets the win over Dean Barry by DQ. I think Omar might have a little extra to say about this. So, Mark, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I have no sympathy for Dean Barry. 2 big fouls. The eye poke was absolutely egregious. Like, you lose. There are rules for a reason, and you lose.
Okay, Omar, take us home, buddy. Lightning.
Here's Mark's just, you lose, sir. I said good day. Yeah, Mike Jackson with another win in the UFC and still has shown no reason why he should be winning in the UFC. I will say that I felt worse for the spinning back kick to the balls. That looked like that he's going to feel that for at least a week. The eye poke I felt less sorry for because he looked like he was fine once the fight was over. I felt like there was a little bit of the Aljo shuffle going on there. You know, when they were asking him, how are you doing?
Oh, my God.
And he's like, I can't see. And then the fight's over. He's like, oh, I'm good. I'm straight. I can see. We're good to go. So I didn't care for that all too much. But like we said in the past, regardless of how somebody reacts to a foul, the fact is they were fouled. And this was the second ridiculous foul from Dean Barry. So that is what it is. We can just move on from there.
You lose.
All right, and that does it for this week's lightning round. Thank you, gentlemen. That was the most lightning round we've had.
We killed that.
In a while.
Good for us.
Give it up.
Good
Give
for
it up.
us. We're learning.
I feel like every time Keith Peterson lets a stoppage go a few punches too long, Dominic Cruz is somewhere crying into a beer.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut for anybody who's listening.
Yes.
If you're watching this on YouTube and you understand that deep cut, drop a comment below of the fact that you understand what's going on with that. Okay. Let us now put a bow on this past weekend by diving into our very own rankings system, the Priaulx Rankings, with Mr. Mark Priaulx. Mark, who has risen and who has fallen in your rankings?
Okay, we only have risers this week. Not a ton of terribly notable moves, but we got 3 for you. The first one is Jessica Andrade, moving back into the women's strawweight division. So I still have Joanna ranked as well. The UFC does not, but I have debuted Andrade in my rankings at number 4. Moving on from there, the next is Claudio Puelles. He moves from number 48 to number 38 in my lightweight ranks. He's finally active. He's marching up the ranks now, so we'll see how high he can get. And the last is Sergey Hondoshko, moves from number 62 to number 50 in my welterweight ranks by virtue of beating Dwight Grant. He gets a legitimizing win here against someone who's got wins in the UFC, and we'll see if he can put a run together now coming back off of injury that kept him out for a couple years. And that is it this week.
That is it this week. Thank you, sir. And that does it for our recaps of this past weekend UFC Fight Night. Lemos versus Andrade and Bellator 278 and 279, both taking place in Honolulu, Hawaii. All right, gentlemen, if you're listening to this, thank you so much. Like and subscribe, all the things. Social media and new _MMA show. Thank you. Please and thank you. All right, boys, let us find out what's going on in the headlines inside the MMA sphere with Omar Artola. What's up, buddy?
What's
I'm
going
running to
on?
my drink because I forgot it, and I'm dying over here, so I'll be back in 1 second.
That's always a good move.
All right, so
Tell
we
me what's
actually
going on.
don't have a ton of stuff today because I want to make sure that we're able to get to a lot of this the other stuff that we have going on tonight for you guys, including some boxing previews as well. So let's jump right into it. Dan Hardy will be returning into the boxing ring, and he will be fighting Diego Sanchez. That's right. Diego Sanchez versus Dan Hardy in a boxing ring.
Oh my God.
And according to Dan Hardy, he will be making more money in this one boxing fight than all of his UFC paychecks put together.
Question.
Go for
You
it.
got to call on me.
Okay, you've been called on.
Okay. What promotion is this with?
I don't remember exactly which one it was. Let me find out. Let's find out. Let's see.
You've been called on.
What I miss.
Dan Hardy and Diego Sanchez are fighting, but not
Yes.
in MMA, but they're fighting in a boxing match. Because
Yeah,
that's what we need to see. That's what the combat sports world really needs.
Painful.
Why don't they just fight in MMA?
No one knows.
Like even if it's a stand-up fight, it's going to be mostly a stand-up fight in MMA. Like maybe Diego's going to try to grapple a little bit, but
yeah, this is on the undercard of Ricky Hatton versus Marco Antonio Barrera.
It's on the. Oh my god,
Dr. Pepper cream soda stinks.
Ricky Hatton?
Yeah,
tried it for the first time today. Stinks.
What stinks?
Dr. Pepper cream soda.
Oh Jesus!
I like both of those things. I don't like this.
Wait, Ricky Hatton's fighting again?
Like that. I guess it doesn't. I thought it was a Triller event, but it doesn't seem to be.
Wait a second. Ricky Hatton has not fought a fight since 2012, according to his record online. Have you seen Ricky Hatton lately?
I'm pretty sure he's old as shit. But
this topic
there it
is veering off the track.
Off a cliff right now.
So, just to recap, Dan Hardy, Diego Sanchez are going to box. It makes no sense whatsoever. But here we are, and chances are we'll all watch it. So there it is.
We'll make sure to ask Tommy to break that one down.
Yeah. Next on the list is actually some really cool news for those of you who like to watch more MMA than just the UFC. Amazon Prime will now officially be the new home of ONE FC. So that will be in the US and Canada going forward. They have officially inked a 5-year deal, and that deal includes 12 minimum events per year annually.
Wow.
So that's probably going to be at least one a month, right? So looking forward to that for sure. The first event in the first calendar of events will be released shortly. We'll make sure to update you guys when that first event is coming out. That's all the news that was super important to point out to you guys for now. Let me just get into a couple of these fight announcements, and we will pop right along. Starting from the top, Joe Solecki versus Alex Da Silva has been added to UFC Fight Night on June 4th. Derek Minner versus Damon Jackson has been added to UFC's June 4th event. Court McGee versus Jeremiah Wells has been added to UFC's June 18th event. Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz has been rebooked for UFC 276 on July 2nd. Trayshawn Gore versus Josh Fremd has been added to UFC's July 9th event. Cal Borrallo versus Armin Petrosian has been added to UFC's July 9th event. And Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Jamie Pickett also has been added to that July 9th, as well as Said Nurmagomedov versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. Herbert Burns versus Hussein Aksabov has been added to UFC's July 16th event. Alexander Gustafsson is returning to the Octagon versus Nikita Krylov now that Ben Rothwell is no longer with the UFC. That's been targeted for July 23rd. And Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich is also in the works for July 30th. That fight is a huge step up for Sergey Pavlovich. So very interested to see how that goes. Speaking of Ben Rothwell, just before we end the Sphere tonight, just want to make sure that we point out that he did speak on exactly what happened. As it turns out, he wanted to re-sign with the UFC, but he knew he had a feeling with the way that things were going, how they had basically released Alistair Overeem and a couple other bigger names in the heavyweight division, that his name might be on the chopping block going forward. So he tried to get a re-sign, a re-up of his contract before this fight with Alexander Gustafsson. They basically told him, let's wait and see what happens. And he took that as they probably don't really want me here at this point either. So he amicably asked for his release from the UFC. They were surprised by the move, but I think ultimately they understood, because he felt like fighting Alexander Gustafsson didn't really mean anything, because they didn't seem like they wanted to keep him around anyway. So it was another fight for another paycheck and he has limited time at this point to make the most out of his fighting career. So he decided to leave and go to BKFC. So it should be noted, the UFC definitely did not have to let his ass out of that contract. So they definitely did him a favor in that respect. He has no ill will towards them, as he's, according to him. We'll see what he does at BKFC. The man with the weirdest stand-up striking style in the UFC is now going to BKFC. So let's see if let's see how that works out for him.
Yeah.
But that's what I got for you guys this week.
Nice. Okay, moving right along then. Here we go. We're going to go into the future, previewing this coming weekend. UFC Fight Night, Font versus Vera. Woo-hoo. I actually love this main event that's coming up, boys. Before we preview the main event, Rob Font versus Marlon Chito Vera, we're going to talk about a few other fights, and we're going to throw them into our quasi-lightning round. We're going to call it Quick Picks. Before we get into that, are there any fights that you guys want to highlight or fighters that you want to shout out on this card for our listeners, our viewers?
I'll just note very quickly there are two debutantes worth keeping an eye on. Johan Lemos in the welterweight division and Tatsuro Taira in the flyweight division are both guys coming in with some hype, making their debuts, so we will see what they bring to the cage.
Okay. UFC Fight Night. Let's see, Font. 1 second, let me just pull up this whole card. Mr. Robert Font. What is next for him? Here we go. Okay. Quick picks, boys. So a phrase or phrase or two or sentence or two. Let us start in the heavyweight division. This fight is going down on the prelims. Alexander Romanov versus Chase Sherman. Mark, why don't you take this one first?
Yeah, Romanov is a minus 2,000 favorite. If Jake Collier can dominate Trey Sherman on the mat, I don't even want to think about what Romanov is going to do to him. Give me Romanov by round 1 sub. It could also be ground and pound. Probably going to be up to him, but I'll guess sub.
Okay, Omar?
So I just did me a quick Google, not to kill the mojo, but it seems like Romanov versus Chase Sherman has been scratched from UFC Vegas.
Oh, no.
Wait, scratched again? Or are you looking at when it got scratched last week?
This is
What do you mean?
3 days ago. Did it get moved back to this one?
It was on last week's card, and it got bumped back to this card.
It doesn't
No, dude, it's still there.
It's still there. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think
Crisis averted.
I think we're good.
I messed with the mojo a little bit. That was my bad.
No worries. Should we move on?
So Romanov versus Sherman. Sherman's a heavy hitter, man. If it was up to me, I think at this point I'm probably going to go with Sherman. Let's go Sherman by KO round 2.
Wow. Okay, moving on into the opening fight of the main card in the middleweight division. Krzysztof Jotko takes on Gerald Meerschaert. I can never say his name. Fucking Meerschaert.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's a heavy one for me too.
Okay, Omar, take this one first. Jotko versus Meerschaert.
This is a super interesting fight, man. Jocko's got a much better stand-up style than Meerschaert does, but Meerschaert is very interesting on the ground, kind of like a smaller version of Paul Craig, but not necessarily as efficient. But he does have the opportunities on the ground. He definitely makes some opportunities on the ground if he can get it there. Jotko seems to be a little bit smarter in that department, and he may not be able to. So I want to pick Meerschaert. I like Meerschaert better, but I think Jotko gets this done by decision.
Mark, what's your take? Give us your quick pick.
Jotko has good takedown D, and he throws heat, so Meerschaert will be in danger, but I love the way Meerschaert has looked as of late. He's looking better on the feet. I was actually really impressed with him there against Muradov in his last fight, and I think he can stay in this as long as he needs to find us up, and I think he'll eventually do it. I'll say Meerschaert by round 2 submission.
Wow, I like Jotko in this fight. I think he is a better fighter. I'm going to go Jotko by submission himself. I'm going to go round 3.
Whoa.
2 bold picks in a row. One from Omar, one from you.
Okay, moving on. In the featherweight division, Darren the Damage Elkins. God, Love this guy. Takes on Tristan Connolly. Mark, sticking with you. What is your quick pick?
I think Connolly's cardio, his wrestling and grappling ability are all things that are going to make him hard to beat for Elkins. Remember, he's a guy that beat Michel Pereira up at welterweight, 2 divisions up. And then he took a round off Pat Sabatini in a loss in his last fight, who's looked otherwise untouchable. So he's got the skills, and I'm going to go with Connolly as the dog here to win a unanimous decision.
Nice. Omar, give us your quick pick.
Yeah, I'm going to mirror what Mark said, but I'm just going to simply caveat that every time I feel like we pick against Darren Elkins ends up getting his ass kicked and then coming back to kick the other guy's ass and win. So while I am going with Connolly in this fight, I think we're all fully aware that Darren Elkins very well might edge out a win here. Just going to put that in the ether.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay, moving on in the lightweight division, Jared Gordon takes on Grant Dawson. Omar, sticking with you. Give us your quick pick.
Yeah, what a great fight this one is.
Yeah, it is.
Every time I think about this fight, I really think that this is Jared Gordon's fight to win. I think he's just a little bit more well-rounded overall. Definitely his ground game. I'm going to go with Jared Gordon by 3rd round submission.
Okay, Mark, quick pick.
I have the opposite take. I don't know what it is that Jared Gordon does that well. He honestly has never wowed me. We've seen that it's possible to control him in the past, and I think that Grant Dawson has the skills to do exactly that. I know his round 3 against Rick Glenn wasn't a great look in his last fight, but I think the talent is there. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage on Gordon, and I just think he's technically the better fighter. I will say Grant Dawson by a clear UD.
Okay. I'm going to roll with my man, the New Yorker, Jared Gordon, Flash Gordon.
Jared Gordon, yeah.
Okay, moving on. You son of a bitch. Quick picks. Okay. What division is this? This is the featherweight division. Andre Touchy-Feely versus, how do I say this guy's name? Joanderson Britu. Okay, Mark, take it first. Quick pick.
I don't understand why this is who Andre Feely is fighting. Like, if he won his debut, it'd be one thing, but he didn't. He lost his debut and somehow gets Andre Feely. And he lost to Bill Algeo, who is Andre Feely's kind of like the better version of Bill Algeo. So I don't get the matchmaking. Britu is certainly dangerous, but we don't have any reason to be doubting Andre Feely right now. He's been looking good, and I think he's earned enough respect to not be picked against here. So I'm going to pick him. I will say Feely by round 2 TKO.
Okay. Omar, Feely versus Britu. What's your quick pick?
Yeah, I think this is probably the best Feely that we've seen in quite some time. Definitely a lot more confident. Like he's, and the people he's been training with over there at Alpha Male are more than elite at this point. Yeah, I'm going to go with Andre Feely. I will do 1st round KO. Make things spicy.
Okay. I will also be taking Mr. Andre Feely. I'm going to say TKO in the 2nd round, to be specific. Okay, moving on into the co-main event of this fight night. In the heavyweight division, Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky takes on Jake Collier. Omar, give us your quick pick first.
So I can totally see this fight being Andre Arlovsky jabbing his way through the entire fight from the outside for 3 rounds. I just don't believe that if Jake gets hit, that he'll completely crumble. I feel like if Andre Arlovsky gets hit one good time, he goes right down to his knees, and that's the end of that fight. So I'm gonna go with the underdog on this one. Arlovsky's been looking good. He's been looking like somebody who knows how to win a fight. But I'm gonna go with Jake Collier, and I'm gonna go by 2nd round KO.
Mark, what's your pick?
That would be sad. Collier has looked legitimately interesting since his move back up to heavyweight, and that is giving me pause. But Arlovsky is still a large step up from the guys Collier's been fighting, and he's been so consistent, so solid. He has turned back anyone who's not an elite heavyweight, and I don't think Collier is that. So, one of these days it's probably going to stop happening for Arlovsky, but I'll take Arlovsky by UD.
I will join you there, Mark, in the land of Andre Arlovsky by unanimous decision over Jake Collier. Okay, quick picks are over. Let's get into this main event in the bantamweight division. A fight that's going down, a fight of consequence in the bantamweight division. In the already stacked bantamweight division, we have Marlon Chito Vera moving on up into the upper echelon of bantamweight, taking on Mr. Rob Font. Gentlemen, what a fight.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. Mark, why don't you go first? Give us your take on Font taking on Chito Vera.
All right, so this is a great fight. Odds are very close. Font is a slight favorite last I checked at -135. Marlon Vera is a +110 dog. Really such a great fight. It's a shame it's kind of not getting much buzz being on a card that's a little lesser. But I love this fight. I'm kind of torn on it. It's definitely a hard one to pick, as the odds suggest. I could talk myself into going either way, but if you guys remember, in Rob Font's last fight, I hammered home my reasoning of why I thought he would lose to Jose Aldo, and it completely ended up playing out. And that reasoning was that in Rob Font's whole run up bantamweight, he was fighting guys who were distinctly smaller than him. And Jose Aldo did not fit that bill. He's not a tiny bantamweight. He was a similar height and reach to Rob Font. And because of that, I thought that Rob Font's jab wasn't going to be close to being the same weapon that we had seen it as in the past, and that ended up absolutely being the case. And Aldo was able to put it on him because of that. And Marlon Vera is 1 inch taller than Jose Aldo. He's got an extra half inch of a reach, and he might even be bigger than Aldo in terms of frame. Marlon Vera is a big bantamweight. Jose Aldo is better than Marlon Vera, as we saw when he beat him recently, but I still think Vera is good enough to make that size matter. He's going to keep a crazy pace on Font all fight. He's going to be burying kick after kick into Font's calves. And yes, when he's doing that, I'm sure he'll have to eat some jabs because he's going to be closing the distance himself, but he can take a shot. He doesn't get rattled in there. Plus, I'm not entirely sure what to make of Font's power after seeing how many shots Cody Garbrandt took from him. I think the wrestling is fairly even, and that Vera is probably the better grappler and the guy who's more of a threat to finish with a submission. So I can see it going either way, but I just think when Font is not able to control a fight with his jab, he's not the same guy, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that here. So I'm going to go with Marlon Vera. I think his pressure is going to be a lot for Font to handle, and I think he could find a way to get him out of there, either just like landing something big out of the blue and pouncing, or even latching onto something in a scramble. I could see that, but I will say we make it to the cards and that Vera takes it there. But give me Marlon Vera UD.
Okay. Omar, give us your take. What are your thoughts on Chito Vera moving up and taking on Rob Font?
So this one's a little difficult for me on a personal level because Rob Font has visited the gym that I train at and has held seminars and things like that.
Really? Wow.
But like Chito Vera is my boy.
Yeah,
he's like been my boy from like jump. So I can't really pick against Chito Vera. So I'm not going to. And I kind of have to echo some of the points that Mark made, especially about the jab, because using the Jose Aldo fight as an example. He's right. The jab wasn't as effective as it normally is. He's able to use that jab to create distance, to stop people from coming forward. And his jab has a sting to it too. It pops people back. But people who are, Jose has a very tight tie style that he's been using his entire career. His head is down, his arms are in, and the reality is that a lot of those punches he can kind of take. Chito Vera fights very similarly with that kind of tight Muay Thai stand-up style. Not to mention, I don't know how long he's been working with Priaulx, but he's working with Priaulx. I have high confidence in Priaulx's ability to get the best out of his fighters, especially when you're trying to level up some version of their game. You got people on that team like Luke Rockhold, Bisping at the time, who when he was fighting, that was the guy that he was fighting with. So Priaulx adapted Bisping to fight with one eye for the second half of his career. So you bet your ass I believe in Priaulx's ability to do something with Chito Vera with all the God's gifts that Chito has. So I do think Chito's going to end up winning this fight. I think he will finish the fight, which I think is a very difficult thing to do to Rob Font, and I think that should be made clear.
Agree.
Rob Font is not an easy person to put out. But I do think
I was planning to go finish, and I had that exact thought you just said, and I was like, I don't think I can do it.
Yeah. It's a very difficult decision, but I will say that I think Chito can get it done. Something about Chito gives me next level vibes recently, and I think he is going to step up to that next echelon of fighter in this division at this point. So I'm gonna go with fourth round TKO.
Oh, you're going TKO.
I'm so curious if we're going to be unanimous on such a close fight.
Looking at Rob Font's record, he has never been knocked out.
Yeah.
Or TKO'd. He has been submitted. He only has one submission loss. That being said, I completely agree with you, Omar, that I just feel like Marlon Vera is on the rise, and he is on some next level shit right now.
Wow, I can't believe we're all in there.
Let's fucking go.
I'm a Cheeto guy too, man. I'm a big time Cheeto guy, and I love his skill set. I love the way he fights. I'm also somewhat of a believer in the law of averages, so I think that he is going to TKO Rob Font. And I'm going to say in the third round, and there you have it. You have it.
Love it.
Also,
what would be sick?
Omar, just curious. Omar, as a resident Spanish speaker, although we live in such an inclusive world now, maybe I should say you are a person with Spanish. I don't know.
I mean, it's fair to say I'm the token Hispanic for the show. It's totally fine.
It's a person with Spanish. What does Chito mean?
I don't know, actually.
I actually thought it was just like a nickname.
Like is it
like as in like a name, you know what I mean?
Like is it a name that is just like some names are just names? Like
yeah, that's what I mean.
I think I looked up once and like some like English, like England, like names like James and John like don't have meanings. They're just names.
Yeah. I gotta say, I've never used the word Chito in a conversation ever in my life.
According to Google, it's like shush.
Yeah. And it's like Spain Spanish, it says too. Oh no, No, like Spain Spanish, yeah.
He's Ecuadorian, right?
He's Ecuadorian.
So maybe it's like a common word down there.
Chito?
It might just be a colloquial word down there, or it might just be just a nickname. I guess Hush would make sense though, right? Kind of like,
Sure.
Yeah, maybe he like used to be loud and people used to say that to him a lot and then became his name. Like it could be anything like that. Who knows?
Or he knocks people out and it makes them go hush.
Or that.
All right, boys. Well, that is a very exciting main event that's coming up this Saturday, UFC Fight Night. Chito Vera versus Rob Font, or excuse me, Font versus Vera. With that being said, the previews are over.
We hit you guys with the MMA, and now we will hit you with the boxing shortly. We will look the same, but we'll be back.
All right, folks. False exit. We'll see in a bit. If this is it for you, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Soft close, and we'll see you on Zoom. Peace.
Peace.